The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Here we go, back at Jerry Lawler's barbecue company, Memphis Barbecue Company, here in Cordova, Tennessee, just a throne's throw away from Memphis, Tennessee. And we are back.
Wait a minute. Do you hear what you just said?
What?
You said just a throne's throw away.
A stone's throw away.
There you go. Easy for you to say.
Can you say Shinsuke Nakamura for me?
Shinsuke Nakamura. How's that? Better?
Very, very much better. We are back here.
Look at those people over there. They're laughing at you right now. They're not laughing at me. Or either maybe they're still laughing at Pelvis Wesley.
Impressive Pelvis.
Oh, I
Wesley.
forget to call him the impressive Pelvis Wesley.
Obviously Raw in Memphis, Tennessee, just this past Monday. And, I texted over the weekend. I was bugging you, like, Jerry, you going to be on Raw? Have they told you yet? And it turns out with the horrible hurricane down in Texas, Booker T was not able to make it to Memphis. So Jerry the King Lawler filled in on commentary. And, Jerry, you are one step closer to that 1,000 Raw episode appearance.
What did that make it up to?
I think it's like 993 or 990.
Really?
Yeah, you're a handful away from 1,000 Raw episodes, which is
holy mackerel.
I think it's more than anybody, obviously.
Yeah, that is amazing.
It's amazing.
Well, I was wondering, like you said, when I heard that it was going to be in Memphis. First of all, I was wondering how many free ticket requests I was going to get from all my so-called friends that show up just whenever Raw is going to come to town. And then I was wondering if they were going to have me on. But they had contacted me and told me that that they were going to do something with Pelvis Wesley, and they wanted me to be there to introduce him. So that's, I knew I was going to be on the show in some capacity, but it really wasn't basically until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I got a text message from Michael Cole and actually said, get your ass down to FedEx Forum. You're going to be doing the commentary on the show tonight.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's how that turned out. But it was great to be back. And like I said, just before I left home to come over here for the podcast, I'm still this morning watching all of this devastation down in Houston. It's just unbelievable, what has happened down there. And I have had contact with Booker T. Fortunately, Booker, his own house is safe, and he and his family were safe throughout this entire thing. But man, the city is just devastated. Now I understand this thing is, it's supposed to start raining a little later on here today in Memphis, and from the after effects of it. But now it's spun back. I don't know what they said. It like zigzagged or something, and now it's going to throw like maybe 10 more inches of rain on Houston. So it's just sad, man. It's so crazy.
It's watching the video of people on boats where streets are supposed to be, and seeing these houses, the first floor of these houses, be completely underwater, and knowing that some of these houses, just people haven't left. They want to stay in their home, or they have nowhere else to go. And there was a news story of these boats, with cameras on them, with obviously with personnel and agencies that want to help people. And lights are on in some of these homes where the first floor is just underwater. It's
crazy.
It's
one of the most heart-wrenching photos I saw was the one from the nursing home, with like a dozen of these elderly people just sitting in chairs and water up to their chest, and they're just sitting there like it's an everyday occurrence. But I guess there's just nowhere for them to go or whatever. But and then of course I also read this morning, just reading about that 58-year-old policeman that drowned in his car. And they were talking to his wife, and she said, I begged him not to go out. And he said, no, I've got to get out there and help people. And then, he winds up drowning in his own police car. And apparently almost 20 people have already lost their life down there. So it's just, it's really sad. and that was the reason, like that, Booker wasn't able to be at Raw, and I'm sure he'll be back next week. Hopefully everything will be fine by then. But it was fun being back on Raw. It was almost like I hadn't been gone. I spoke to Vince. I went by and the gorilla position, spoke to Vince McMahon afterwards, and he just hugged me and said, "You didn't miss a beat, King." And that was basically what it was. It's just and working with Michael, and that was I've worked with Corey before, but that was one of the, not very many times, but it was cool to work with both Michael and Corey, and kind of I wanted to really kind of get into it a little more with Corey, but the opportunity never really presented itself to.
Yeah, you had some classic one-liners, especially at the end when Nia Jax, did the electric chair on Alexa Bliss. You go, what did she do? She fall?
How's that a classic one-liner? What did I say?
Did she fall? I didn't see. What happened? And then Corey was like, "Come on, King." That's
not a classic one-liner. That's just a reaction.
For a one-liner during the.
I thought she may have just fallen over from the weight of that little minute Alexa Bliss. She is so tiny. Oh my gosh, in person. I just walked past a couple times in the hallway, said hi, and just think, as soon as you walk past, I said, "Gosh, she's tiny."
Yeah, but she's good though.
Oh yeah, she's good. Very good.
So you came out, and now we talked about Southpaw Regional Wrestling, an impressive pelvis Wesley, which is Heath Slater, and you had no clue what Southpaw Regional Wrestling was.
No, but you know what? I know I didn't retweet it, but the Commercial Appeal, which is our local Memphis paper here in Memphis, newspaper, some guy did a big story on Raw being in Memphis the next day, and I think it's in the online version. And this guy did a big story about Raw being in Memphis, went into detail about what all went on, and especially talking about John Cena's promo with Roman Reigns. But then he also went in and delved into the deal about Southpaw Regional Wrestling. And I guess what this is just sort of a farce or a takeoff on the 80s wrestling territory TV shows.
Yeah.
Like the one we had in Memphis. Of course, Lance Russell was our commentator. And on this Southpaw Regional Wrestling, Lance Cavalcade or something like that is the commentator.
It's Lance Catamaran, which is...
Oh, Catamaran. I'm sorry.
Which is John Cena.
Cavalcade would have been better.
which is John Cena. It's Cena's involved. The roster of this is impressive.
Now, who's the guy that's sitting next to John Cena that was like drunk?
That's Fandango.
Oh, it is?
Oh, he's great. It's
well, he's got on the sunglasses and I don't know, but they all wear bad wigs, and so I didn't know who that was. But yeah, he just sits there like he's inebriated and totally out of it, and John is like the old school. I think John is trying to be a cross between Lance Russell and Gordon Soley, and then there's no wrestling, of course. It's just interviews, like these old classic interviews, and. Rusev, I don't know who Rusev was trying to be, sort of like Plowboy Frazier or Uncle Elmer or something, but it was kind of funny. But I don't get the point of it.
You don't get it's I think it's just a YouTube show or a WWE.com production. I guess it's just.
Well, are they making fun of the?
No, I don't think it's
wrestling. Are they? What are they doing with it?
I think it's just for fun. It's just something. Oh, actually, I think it was part of. Well, KFC sponsored the first season, and then Old Spice sponsored the second season, and Ric Flair was doing.
Old Spice is going to sponsor the third season.
But actually, there is going to be a third season. They're going to do a '90s version of.
A '90s version.
Yes.
Okay.
These two were from the '80s, but the '90s. I thought I enjoyed it, but impressive pelvis Wesley, which is like, obviously it's a take on his crotch area. He's very impressive. Down there, but nobody reacted. It's the disconnect between, I think, the WWE product and hardcore fans like myself that would enjoy this old school stuff.
I'm going to tell you what it is. It's not a disconnect. It's just that. And I guess it's impossible. We've sort of talked about this before. I guess it's impossible for this not to happen. But when you're a part of working at the WWE, especially in the creative end of it, or where you're involved in all of the TV shows and that sort of stuff, everything that's done, I mean, a lot of work goes into every single thing that's done. I mean, there's no telling how much work and preparation has to go into that, producing those little shows like Southpaw Regional Wrestling that are really only shown on either the website or the network. And the problem is, though, or I don't know if it's a problem, but what happens is, I think the people that are involved in creating these shows and or the WWE, let's just say the WWE in general, are under the impression, and it's definitely a false impression, or either they just tend to start to think that everybody sees these shows.
Yeah.
And that's just you assume you're putting all this work into it and you're doing these shows and you just assume that everybody's going to see it. That's just not the case. I mean, and I knew it immediately. I could tell from the crowd there in Memphis that when this was all taking place, I'll bet you out of the thousands of people, I'll bet you there was not a handful of people that even had ever heard of the impressive Pelvis Wesley. That's why it was so, you could hear crickets. They just, they didn't know this. They didn't know what we were doing. They didn't know what was going on.
Right.
They'd never heard, they haven't seen that on the WWE network. I mean, like you said, it takes a hardcore wrestling fan to go to the WWE network and watch a show on there like Southpaw Regional Wrestling. So, I think that's just one of the things that happened, and that's why even though we had a great crowd and a big crowd there in Memphis, some of the things that went on, the people just weren't up on. They just weren't familiar with, and that was one of them. Impressive Pelvis Wesley. I didn't even know who he was. I had not seen it until I was not aware of it until after after we did it and it was explained to me.
It's I love the show. I think it's great. It's like 5 different episodes a season, 5 or 6 episodes, and they're like 5 minutes each. And it's short. It's just promos, like you said. There's no wrestling. It's just over the top characters, and promos, and I think it's great for the guys that are involved because it's nothing that's going to be on WWE TV. They're just having fun, putting costumes on and being someone else, and having the freedom to say what they want and have these wacky characters. Chris Jericho is Clint Bobsky, like a backstage interview guy, and he's just wacky. And you have Cena involved and AJ Styles as a car salesman. It's just it's different, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I even heard on the one episode that I saw, Ric Flair voicing over a commercial, and then at the end he said, "Of course, this is not the real Ric Flair,"
because they couldn't afford.
They couldn't afford me on the show.
But yeah, it's if you're listening to the podcast, obviously you're a wrestling fan and Jerry Lawler fan. If you haven't watched Southpaw Regional Wrestling, give it a try. I mean, it has millions of views on YouTube, so people are watching it. But it's a good show if you love wacky 80s territory promotion.
And people do. Trust me, people do. In that Commercial Appeal article that I was talking about earlier, they put up a comparison video, and it was Lance Russell interviewing Jimmy Hart, Dream Machine, and Bugsy McGraw, and it was sort of similar to the crazy Southpaw Regional Wrestling, and that was but hey, that stuff is what drew money. I mean, that stuff is what put people in the seats back in the 80s. The interviews more so than the wrestling. And hey, talk about interviews that'll put people in the seats. What about John Cena and Roman Reigns in that promo? John did the insider term and said, "Hey, it's called a promo, Roman." Oh. Try to learn how to do those. It
was a shoot, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a shoot. I don't know if it was a shoot, which of course is like another insider term for something that is like totally legit or real. But yeah, there was a lot of realism in that interview. A lot of those things you wouldn't think would be normally said, but I mean, it was a lot of things that are said behind the scenes, just like John said, and those things have been said for years behind the scene, and it all just came out right there on live TV last Monday, and I thought it was awesome. It was, and hey, you've heard the response from the fans too. Everybody shocked and surprised that much truth was laid out, bared out right there in front of everybody. And then obviously, part of Roman Reigns, whatever he was going to say, he knew beforehand what he was going to say, and he forgot what he was going to say. And man, John Cena jumped on him with both feet at that point. And it was something that you wouldn't expect to see. And it was good.
It's called a promo. If you want to be the big dog, you're going to have to learn how to do it. See a fourth wall. And then Cena said, Roman Reigns is a cheap-ass corporate-created John Cena bootleg. And he says, I'm still here because you can't do your job.
Ooh.
So,
and your job, meaning that he's still here because you, Roman Reigns, aren't good enough to take his place. And that's what he was basically saying. And I think Roman sort of panicked when he forgot his lines, and then, man, the obscenity started flying left and right there for a second.
I thought it was PG. You can't be saying the B word like that, right?
He said a lot of them in a row in the same sentence, like four cuss words in like the same one sentence.
Obviously, you're on commentary and you have the headphones on, and I'm sure, people are in your ear, and you guys are being quiet during this. Obviously, letting the two guys talk. Was there any chatter going on in your ears during this, or was?
You know what? It was so cool. During the entire show, 3 hours, the only person I heard in my ear was Kevin Dunn, and not talking to me in general at all, singling me out, just like saying, like giving us countdowns to when the commercial break was going to be or something like that. No, there was, and I don't know if it was for Michael or for Corey, but no, Vince, nobody. I didn't hear from anybody during the entire show.
Wow.
Which is always a good thing.
Oh, God. Do you want Vince screaming in your ear? I'm sure that's...
Well, yeah. I mean, usually the only time you hear from somebody is if you say something stupid, screw up or something. You might hear, why did you say that? Or don't say that,
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's always good. But, yeah, that promo was great. And I'm sure, Dave Meltzer, we have a question because this episode is all about the King and questions from our fans. It's our Ask the King Anything, again, show. And one of the questions is about wrestling journalists, and we'll get into that. But I guess Meltzer reported that this was all scripted. All the lines were approved beforehand. There were a few ad libs, obviously, with Cena. When Reigns forgot his lines, Cena stepping in, and there was some dueling ad libs back and forth. But this was a scripted promo. I'm sure something like this has to be approved because
because Dave Meltzer knows everything. Dave Meltzer.
We'll get into
little dweeby.
We'll get into Dave Meltzer very shortly. But I mean, you don't want to, have these two guys going back and forth like this, just off the cuff, right? I mean, this has to be something that is approved by Vince, right?
Well, not necessarily. No, this is what's great about live TV. Even Vince has said it. Nothing can go wrong on live TV because whatever happens is, it's unique. It's classic because it's live. And if something does go off, track a little bit, it's still good. So no, everything that you see doesn't have to be scripted.
Oh, come on.
And if two guys, no, it doesn't. I'm serious. It doesn't.
I'm talking about this particular segment.
I don't know. I wasn't privy to that. I don't know. I didn't see those two guys beforehand. I don't know how that all went down. I know. I could tell that some of that was said. Whether it was scripted or not, it was honest. It was real.
Yeah.
So you can't. I don't know whether it was or not.
How good?
But I do know that what John said is what he has felt for a long time, and what has been said about him for a long time by a lot of different people. So to me, it was real. It was the real deal, and I was glad that it was finally brought out in front of the a public. I mean, you know what? I think that did. I think that did so much for John Cena by putting that out there, because I think that's one of the reasons those feelings are one of the reasons that a lot of people still boo John Cena or don't like John Cena. And it's not John Cena's fault. I mean, trust me, I guarantee you there's nobody more than John Cena who would love to see somebody come along and take some of the pressure off of him and basically take his place. He'd like to go do other things, I'm sure. But honestly, there's been nobody able to fill his shoes. And a lot of people blame that on John Cena, and it's not John Cena. It's just like, hey, you get handed the ball, you're a running back, you either run for a touchdown or you fumble the ball or whatever, and it's up to you once you're handed the ball. And trust me, the WWE has handed the ball to a lot of guys trying to find another John Cena, trying to find another Rock, trying to find another Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, they only come along once in a blue moon.
It was a good promo, though. I enjoyed it. And I texted you, and you actually read my text on the air. Didn't give me credit.
What do you think? I'm going to say your name on Raw?
Come on. Yeah. You did. There was no Dinner with the King.
The impressive Glenn Moore just tweeted me and said this,
You should have gave a Dinner with the King plug. No podcast plug.
Oh, my gosh. You were blowing me up with that.
Oh, my God, King. You had 3 hours on Raw, and you couldn't even.
Well, that's one of the things I think.
I'm giving you a hard time,
things
King.
That I think that might have gotten me something in my ear from Vince McMahon if I had started sitting out there plugging myself.
It's like JR. It's like JR going on NXT or Raw or, plugging his podcast. I mean, people probably wouldn't sit over well.
Does he do that?
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. I'm sure it'll be like if JR did that. I'm sure it wouldn't sit well. Or Jericho came out, plugging his podcast when he does his appearances. So I mean, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Speaking of Jericho, he was on. He was plugging one of his appearances. He was basically at. Where was he at the other night with me? At Duchess Stadium in. What was that city?
It was in New York.
Yeah, somewhere in New York.
Geez.
Can't remember.
I don't know the Queensberry.
I don't know. No, one place we were in was Danbury, Connecticut.
You had a big weekend. Obviously, last week we had Cody Rhodes on the show. Interview is on iTunes and all our podcast platforms. Good interview with Cody Rhodes.
What about my match with Cody Rhodes? I had the Ring of Honor and Northeast Wrestling Championship in my grasp. I had the daggum thing won, and Cody Rhodes, of all people, that all the nice things he said about me, and what does he resort to win the match? Is the referee gets pushed out of the way, and I turn around and Cody Rhodes with a kick, a low blow right between the legs, to get the victory.
And you had him. You had the pile driver, and you had him for the 1, 2, 3, and he puts his leg on the rope.
Yep.
Because you didn't hook the far leg, King. That was your home. And the thing is, though, you never pulled the strap down.
I didn't?
No, not one time. And that's what you talked about. When King pulls the strap down, it's over. You did not pull the strap down once during that match.
I guess I wasn't ready to go home yet. I don't know.
Don't use those terms, King. Don't.
Oh, what did I say? Go home?
Jeez.
I meant go back to the hotel room when the match was over.
And Cody actually kicked your crown too. He kicked it.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I don't know what happened there. I turned around and I was looking at the fans. I turned around. He had it on his head, And then I turned back around, which, hand on his head is no big deal. I turned back around. I didn't actually see him punt the crown, but as I turned back, the crown was literally flying through the air. And I went, what just happened? I didn't even realize that he had kicked it until after the match was over. I thought he may have, literally the way I did, when I turned back, the crown was flying through the air over to the guy at ringside, and he caught the crown and put it down. But yeah, he actually kicked my crown. Now that is total disrespect.
Yeah, that was. But
bad. It wasn't as bad as kicking my testicles, which he did later on in the match.
Yeah, then he rolled you up for the 1, 2, 3 when you were arguing with the referee over the 3 count. So I was hoping for a better finish, I guess. Maybe a teasing that you're going to be Ring of Honor champion and the Northeast Wrestling champion. But the way it went down, it was the right thing to do.
You know what? Speaking of Northeast Wrestling, I just saw, and Michael Lombardi, of course, we always talk about him, but he did promote 2 great shows. I mean, he had a lot of stars on these shows, as we talked about. Cody Rhodes, Cody's wife, Brandy Rhodes, was on the show. Rey Mysterio was on both of these shows that we did up there for Mike Lombardi in Northeast. Chris Jericho was there. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Bob Orton was there, even Marty Jannetty. I saw Marty Jannetty there, and Mick Foley was there, and myself. I mean, he had a huge array of stars. And I wrestled this guy named Robbie E., who's a really talented young man, up and coming. I wrestled Robbie E. at the Duchess Stadium, and so it was 2 great nights of stuff there. And I got Chris Jericho to sign one of his books. He's got his new book out.
Yeah.
What is it? No is a 4-letter word, I think is the title of it.
Yeah, I think.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he sold and signed like 500 copies of his new book right there at Duchess Stadium. It took him about 4 hours of just sitting there signing. But it was a huge crowd and a great weekend up there.
It was great. Yeah, I was following along on social media, all the pictures and whatnot. How was the taco contest with you and Mysterio as the MCs? How did that go? One of the guys
kept laughing because I guess I said to the crowd, another thing, there was a big taco festival in Danbury, and a huge crowd for this, and I guess an arena where they usually have ice skating or whatever. They had it set up, and it was a taco festival. All around the outside of this arena were different local or whatever taco restaurant stands, whatever, set up inside there, serving all this kind of Mexican food and all that stuff, and people just turned out. I guess you paid 1 entry fee to get in the door, and then you could eat as much any tacos and burritos and all this kind of stuff as you wanted. So a huge crowd in there. And then they had a wrestling ring set up. They had 3 matches. Rey Mysterio wrestled in one of the matches, and I got to judge a taco eating contest. And there were about, I think probably about 12 or 13 participants or entrants in this taco eating contest. And it was crazy. I mean, there was this one guy named Gentleman Jim or Gentleman Joe or something like that. He looked like he weighed in at about a little even more than you, Glenn. This guy was probably pushing 400 pounds.
Oh, come on. I am not.
What?
I am not even. No,
I said that he was way more than you. Okay, let me say way more than you.
Thank you.
All right, and I told everybody this guy's bathtub has stretch marks. That's how big he was. Jeez. And he ate in I think the time limit was 5 minutes. This guy ate 17 tacos.
That's it?
In 5 minutes. I know that doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, but they were big. I mean, these were big tacos. 17 tacos. How can you eat 17 tacos in one sitting?
I can do that. I should have came.
No,
there.
You can't.
I would have.
The next closest guy was like 9.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
What?
I would have definitely beaten this gentleman guy. 17 tacos. I can eat a 12-pack of the, Taco Bell boxes, and that's like 12 tacos.
Yeah, well, this guy ate 17.
Well, I can.
That's 5 more than 12.
Well, next year I'm coming up for this taco festival. If you MC it again. I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's the greatest day of my life to get to MC judge a taco eating contest.
Any other thoughts from this weekend? You had a nice weekend, though. And
Well, you know what? I'll tell you one of the things I found out some information, and I've even found out even more information since then. But the pleasure of Ricky Steamboat rode with Lauren and I from one of the towns to the next, and had an extensive conversation, and most of it was about the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And apparently what Ricky did, as soon as Ricky heard that he was in the hospital, he jumped on a plane and flew down there and went right to, went into his room there he said he was in the ICU. And when he went in and Ricky was standing there, and I guess Nature Boy's fiance, Wendy kind of rubbed Rick's forehead, and Steamboat said that Rick was just out of it, and she rubbed his forehead, and she said, Rick, look who's come to see you. It's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And he said Flair opened his eyes and looked at Ricky the Dragon and said, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, incredible. that was all he said, and he just kind of closed his eyes back again. But apparently it was really a touch and go situation. They explained to him what all had gone down, and when the Nature Boy had that first surgery, I guess the doctors told him that there was just that it was really touch and go, and that he had about like a 20% chance of survival of making it through that surgery. But we all know that he did. And of course, I guess during the surgery, even what made it even more hairy was the fact is, I guess his kidneys failed, and they had to put him on dialysis during that time. But since then, he's the Nature Boy he's kicked out. He's making a comeback. He's getting a lot better. And that was one of the things that Steamboat said. He said, he was in such bad shape when I first got there, and he said I just heard yesterday that he's already cutting promos on the nurses there at the hospital. So he's doing a lot better, and he's on the road to recovery. Going to get him into some rehab, and even the Nature Boy himself on a tweet said, hey, the Nates will be back better than ever. So that's great news. I mean, we came I guess really close to losing one of the greatest of all time, but now it looks like he's going to be back, and in his own words, better than ever.
It's amazing, and he kicked out at 2.5, eyes closed.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's great news to hear about Rick, and hopefully we can see him. I'm sure he'll be making the appearances and strutting down some aisle very, very shortly. All right, King. So like I said, this is our Ask the King Anything episode. And we have a bunch of questions. We're not going to get to them all, but we have a bunch of questions from people. We have voicemails. People can actually call in to the show and leave a voicemail for you, King. So the number is on our social media. It's really simple. You dial a number, you dial the code, and you can leave a voicemail. So we have some voicemails. So if you want to hear your voice on the show, you can do that. We also have some Twitter questions, also some email questions. But I have my own questions, King. So
you do?
Right off the bat.
Oh, you know what? I was just looking at my one other thing before we get off the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat thing here. I was sitting there, doing the signing, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was right, next to me at the table right next to me, and so I'm looking over at him, and then my fiance Lauren, of course, she comes and sits down beside me, and she's looking down at her phone and everything, and so I took a picture of Lauren, and then I saw, of course, Ricky was in the back of the picture, and I decided to post the picture to Instagram, and this thing has just gone crazy. It's got like 9,000 likes on this picture of Lauren, because I mean, the way she was sitting next to me, and everybody, that's the main comment that people have put on there. I'm a big fan of the puppies. And apparently, the way Lauren was sitting, she was looking down at her phone, and the top she was wearing was kind of, I don't know, it showed some cleavage there and that sort of thing. So anyway, what?
Some cleavage.
What do you mean some? What's the deal?
More like a lot.
Oh, okay. But anyway, I put on there. I put this picture, and I said, the picture I took of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And then I hesitated, and then I said, "What? You don't see Ricky?" Because I guess the most prominent part of the picture was Lauren and the puppies and the close-up picture. But anyway, this thing has gotten 9,000 views in this the last couple of days, and 5 or 400 or something like that comments. Yeah, 8,962 likes on this picture. Did you like it, Glenn? Did you find it offensive? A few people thought that it was kind of creepy because I guess they didn't know that was my fiance or something like that. But I think it's a lovely picture of Lauren.
People are jealous, King, because a man your age can get a woman like that. They're just jealous. People are jealous.
Come on.
I'm serious. People. If I'm that age and I can get a girl like that, I would be living the dream.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm living the dream, man.
No, I did like it. I thought it was hilarious. It was a good photo of Ricky the Dragon Streetboat.
And I got some pictures there. Me and Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio was wearing. This was the day of the fight, and he was constantly going on about how Conor McGregor was just going to destroy Floyd Mayweather, and Rey Mysterio was even wearing a Conor McGregor T-shirt. And so, and speaking of that, what about Enzo Amore? I talked to him Monday night, and he really did pay $10,000 for a ticket to go to that fight.
That is absurd. You know how much I paid to watch that?
Oh, knowing you, I'm sure you pirated it some kind of way.
You know me very well, King. Yeah, I watched it for free in HD on my computer. I'm not going to pay $100 for that, but I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that because I don't have the government coming after me. But
it was a great fight. I loved it. I mean, it was. I mean, you couldn't expect any more out of that. Both those guys did phenomenal. The way the outcome was, I think it didn't hurt anybody. As a matter of fact, it made everybody look good. You know, a lot of people said, even Conor McGregor said, "Oh, you should have let it go. You should have let him knock me down or knock me out or something." Well, I think it was good that the referee did stop it because then that's Conor McGregor can say, "Hey, he didn't even knock me down. He didn't knock me out." But if that fight had gone another 20 seconds, he would have been knocked down. He would have been knocked out. So, I mean, I just thought it was a really entertaining, much more entertaining than it had the right to be. Honestly, it was good. I enjoyed it, and I got to watch it. We paid money to watch it on this big screen. That was another thing that Michael Lombardi did. He had rented this entire back room at this club in somewhere there in New York, and we all got to watch everybody that was on the card got to watch the fight on a big screen. It was really good.
Nice. That's.
And what about Mauro Ranallo? Mauro Ranallo, my old partner, was broadcasting the fight of the century.
Oh Lord.
You didn't like Mauro, huh?
I mean, I'm sure
Not
he's
a fan.
I'm sure he's a nice guy in person, but the commentary, people were calling for you. People were calling for you and JR to call it.
Well, I thought Mauro did a good job. I don't know the guy that does it with him, but I thought Mauro did fine.
I'm just not a fan of Mauro's commentary. Call me a bully, whatever. I don't care. I just don't. People don't like certain things. I guess I don't know. I just don't. I just don't find it appealing. So Enzo, $10,000.
Oh yeah, that's what I the first thing I asked him as I was passing him in the hallway, and that may have been one of the reasons that the remark made about Enzo was. I said, I like the guy. I said, he is nuttier than squirrel poop, but I like him. And that's what I said about him on Raw. But he told me that what made it worthwhile was that when he went into one of those, like apparently he dressed even more absurdly than he ordinarily dresses on Raw, because he said he went into some sort of like room, I guess with the $10,000 ticket, you were granted a sort of VIP access to certain places. And he said Steve Harvey cut a promo on him and the way he was dressed. And he said, man, he said that was worth the trip alone and the $10,000 right there for Steve Harvey to cut a big promo on the way I was dressed in front of everybody.
That's amazing. Well, for $10,000, you better be feeding me caviar and lobster and sirloin steaks.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, me talking about food again. King, look at
that barbecue you still got on your plate there. You're worried about a sirloin steak.
I'm just saying, would you pay $10,000 for anything like that? If you would see like maybe Ali versus Tyson, if you could see that fight back in the heyday, would you have paid $10,000 for that?
No, I really wouldn't have. I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm a big fan of television. I mean, I wouldn't pay $10,000 to go and have a seat on the 50-yard line of the Super Bowl, even if the Cleveland Browns were playing in it. Because to me, you can always see this stuff so much better and so much more comprehensive if on television. I mean, the replays and all of the commentary. Anything that I think is really important, I'm perfectly satisfied with watching it on television. I mean, I can't imagine that being there live for that fight was better than watching it on a big screen TV. And, you know, where you could just, I mean, you're right feel like you're right in the ring with these guys, and you close up the facial expressions and all that sort of stuff. I'm perfectly content to watch stuff on television. No, I wouldn't pay $10,000. Now, I paid $10,000 for a lot of stupid stuff, but not to watch something.
What's one stupid thing that you paid $10,000 for?
I paid $10,000 for a $10,000 bill or Federal Reserve note that I found out later had been thrown out of, during like the early 1900s, had been thrown out of the window of a Federal Reserve bank when the bank caught on fire, and they were just throwing these banknotes out the window. And so then later on, shortly after that, because the public just were able to grab up a bunch of these big banknotes, so they were devalued. They were like considered null and void. You know, they weren't of any value. I didn't know that, and this beautiful $10,000 banknote I wound up buying because I sort of collect like paper money.
Yeah.
I've got, and you know, everybody likes to collect paper money, but I have some, you know, a bunch of $500 bills, a bunch of $1,000 bills, and so I wanted a $10,000. So I had the opportunity to buy and bought this $10,000 banknote, thinking that at minimal value it was worth $10,000, only to find out later that it was one of those notes that had been thrown out the window of this burning bank and wasn't worth $10,000 anymore.
What was it worth?
It's still collectible, and it's probably worth about $2,000.
Oh, that's an $8,000 hit.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I said. I've paid $10,000 for some dumb things before in my life.
Oh boy. All right, let's get into the questions from the fans.
I'm looking at a. Well, I probably shouldn't even tell it.
No, say it. What?
I'm looking at a charcoal piece of artwork on my wall right now. Just looking at it, that I paid $75,000 for.
Oh, jeez, King. 75,000.
Yeah, but right now, from the time I bought it, now it's valued at $125,000.
What's the most expensive thing, other than like a house or a car or stuff like that? What's the most probably obscure, expensive thing you ever paid for?
Well, this Norman Rockwell original piece of art, probably.
Okay. What's the second most? Maybe
the Batmobile.
Yeah. Well, those are good pieces, though. Those are.
Yes, I mean, when you're a collector or stuff, those are good pieces.
Those are good pieces. All right, this is our Ask the King Anything episode again, and we have voicemails to play. We have questions from fans. Let's get into it, King. All right. Okay. Steve in North Carolina.
Wait a minute. How long is this thing? We're not into it yet.
We're halfway. We're halfway through. We'll go for. We're not going to answer. Well, a preface for everybody. I know a lot of questions came in. A lot of voicemails came in. We're not going to play every voicemail. We're not going to answer every single question. So I'm going to keep the questions, keep the voicemails we don't use, and with our next Ask the King Anything episode, we'll have them. So we're not going to go through all these questions, King. So don't worry.
Okay, and then at the end of the show, are you going to ask me that one final question of what I've got upcoming, what I'm going to be doing soon, like the next weekend, like this coming weekend, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay.
All right. Steve in North Carolina wants to know, you once visited Sable at the Playboy Mansion for a WWE skit. How was your experience off camera at the Playboy Mansion?
Are they talking about did I have an off-camera experience with Sable at the Playboy Mansion?
No, I think they just want to know, when the cameras weren't rolling, how was this, being at the mansion?
Yeah, I've actually been at the mansion a couple of times,
Okay.
and the one they're talking about was with Sable for a WWE shoot, and then I've got the chance to be there another time. It's awesome.
I understand that you had an interesting weekend. You went to the Playboy Mansion, but things didn't quite turn out the way you wanted it to.
Oh, wait a minute. You're right. Sable took me on a tour of the Playboy Estates, and things went pretty well. There was a little misunderstanding at the end, but that's been cleared up. Just take a look at this. It's great.
I mean, that's one of those places that you've heard about your entire life if you're a guy. The Playboy Mansion, Hugh Hefner, and I, of course, got to meet Hugh Hefner both times that I was there. And he was just like you would expect Hugh Hefner to be. He was always, in that smoking jacket, the robe type thing, pajamas, and just a really laid back guy. Came around, he took us out, and I'll never forget, he took us out and showed us like, I don't know if it was like a guest house, or maybe it was like a guest house, but it had a really cool pinball machine. It had an old Playboy pinball machine from like the 60s or something like that was still working out there. And he said this is one of the most popular things. People just love to play this pinball machine. Speaking of that, that was another thing I paid a lot of money for. I just got a Incredible Hulk pinball machine from the old TV show Hulk, a pinball machine that's probably 40 years old. I just got it up and running out here in my man cave by my 10-foot tall Incredible Hulk. But anyway, back to the Playboy Mansion pinball machine. That was cool. Hugh Hefner was cool. One of the things that I got to do on that same visit was put on a swimsuit, and they had brought in about a dozen playmates or bunny girls or whatever they call them. I don't think these were girls that had actually been playmates in the magazine. These were just girls that worked at the either Playboy Club or at the mansion or whatever. And they accompanied me into the grotto. You know what the grotto is, right?
Yeah.
The sort of in a cave type pool that's there in the back of the mansion. And all the grounds of the Playboy Mansion were unbelievable too. Out in the back, there's almost like a petting zoo or something. There's all these hundreds of flamingos. These big, tall, beautiful pink flamingos are walking around. All these exotic birds and different animals. There's like some kind of big chimpanzee or something out there. I mean, just a bunch of, it was, I guess these are like pets or collections of Hugh Hefner out in the back. But going into the grotto, first of all, I'm thinking, I can't believe, imagine what else happened in this water. But
oh God,
right. I definitely took a shower after I got out of there. But it was like, there was, we shot some scenes in the grotto with a bunch of bunnies or playmates or whatever. So it was a pretty fun and memorable experience. I do remember the girls not being as pretty as I thought they would be.
Oh, come on, be a star.
Yeah, I know that's kind of a downer for the story, but they were not. They just weren't as pretty as I expected them to be.
There was a line. Sable says, King, I told you to keep your hands to yourself. And you go, what? My hands by my wrist the whole time.
Excuse me, could you put some lotion on my back?
Oh, could I? There's something about you I like. I just wish I could put my finger on it.
I thought I told you to keep your hands to yourself.
At no time did my hands ever leave my wrist.
Oh, God.
It was great. But yeah, that was a great little bit with you. But yeah, it was seemed like you had fun. You were American.
And honestly, there's a true story. Like there were bowls. I saw two, these big bowls. Just like if you're in your house and you have a end table or whatever next to your couch and you got a lamp on it or whatever, and these had, these end tables had lamps, and then they had big bowls full of like Viagra.
Oh, shit.
This was when Viagra was just like coming out, and it was like the big thing, and they had just bowls of, and I don't know if that was just there as like a just as a talking point or a conversation piece or whatever, but that they were really there.
Did you take any?
No, I didn't take any.
Well, you were a married.
I was there on business. You got to understand.
You were a married man at this time, right? I believe.
Yes.
So
yes.
So you didn't partake in any fun.
No, and as a matter of fact, she was with me at the time. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. So that's a question from Steve. Here's another question from Mike in State College, PA. He wants to know. Here's a Meltzer question: how does WWE / the Superstars Wrestling view the dirt sheets / wrestling quote unquote journalists like Dave Meltzer and whatnot?
Yeah, they're not fond of them, as you can imagine. And I think probably the reason they're not fond of them is because when those guys get the information that they get, which is always inside information that spoils the fun of what somebody is in the WWE is trying to put out there for the fans. That what the WWE has to realize is there's somebody, some rat, some mole on the inside that's working, that's on the payroll for the WWE that is giving the information to these guys. I mean, to these dirt sheets and to these Meltzers and guys like that. That's the only way that they can get that information. And so that's frustrating, and that's hard to deal with, and that's that would make anybody upset. If you and I were sitting down and for weeks writing some kind of a script for a movie or a TV show or something like that, and then it's going to be a big surprise to the public, and then I find out or you go out and leak it out to somebody that writes it, that puts it in a newspaper article, and so that everybody can see it before it comes out. It just spoils the fun of everything, and I'd be really disappointed in you if you leak that information out. And that's what goes on with these dirt sheet guys. They're just there as I've never understood their purpose. They're really 99% of them are people who are not athletes, have never been in the business. They can't really respect the business or even like the business of wrestling. Or they wouldn't do that, I mean, we all know it's entertainment, and when you're watching a TV show or a movie, and you just start watching it, if somebody comes along and tells you how it ends or what's going to happen in the show before it happens, that's spoiling it for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they call it spoilers, and that's all these guys are about. That's what they live to do, and I never could understand them, and I never liked him or had respect for him.
Would you call Meltzer a little dweeb? Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah.
So you don't like Meltzer at all, or just?
No, not at all. But I'm never around him. I never see him or talk to him or anything. But I just don't like what he does.
But somebody has to be talking. I mean, has WWE ever done some stuff to find out who the leak is? Do they really care about that kind of stuff? Or
well, yeah, they care about it. Sure, they do. But it's. I guess when you got so many people working for you, it's hard to find who does that stuff. But then, I don't know. Then I think JR has done shows with Meltzer.
Yeah. I mean, I think people want to know the behind the scenes stuff because of, why.
Well, you know what? They only think they want to know.
Yeah.
They really don't. It really does spoil things for them when they know that. It would be much more fun to watch and much more entertaining if you didn't know that stuff.
Back in the day when I was in high school and the Attitude Era was prevalent, when internet was just starting, I would go to Raja.com, which was a website that did like recaps and whatnot, and I would only read the spoilers when SmackDown was taped, and if I didn't watch SmackDown or something, or I'm not going to watch SmackDown, I would read the day before spoilers of the tapings. But I can only imagine what it is to be like a wrestling fan now if I was a teenager and spoilers were just everywhere, all over the internet. It wouldn't be fun. But
no. And you know what? I remember back in the day, one of the first guys, and I loved him, but I just couldn't understand the mindset of it or anything. But one of the first guys to start giving out a lot of the information to a friend of his, they put out one of the first quote unquote dirt sheets, was Eddie Gilbert down here in Memphis. He had some guy that he was a friend of his, and they put out these. I'll never forget. It was like a little. This was like you said, before the internet or computers or anything. He would put them out on a little 2 or 3 sheets of paper, and they'd staple it together at the top and mail them out to people.
What?
And so, oh yeah.
Wow. That's Well, what about people who, these journalists who report on things like news, like, okay, so and so was fired because of this, or so and so is suspended because of this. What do you, things like that, non-spoiler stuff. Is that okay or no?
Well, are you talking about wrestling news?
Yeah, like the whole Paige situation. Paige is suspended, and people reporting things about her and Alberto Del Rio. Not personal stuff, but also she's not going to be.
What do you mean? Not yes. It is always personal stuff.
Right.
That's what they love to dig into.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that at all. I don't like that when they try to dig into somebody's personal life. I really don't. That's not part of the. Somebody should get to have a little privacy in their personal life. That shouldn't be all part of the business. But when things happen that you're responsible for, then it does become like news, or it gets your personal life out there in public, and then it can't be helped. But I don't like it when they just go and try to dig behind the scenes stuff that has no really news value or anything like that to be out there.
Yeah, so I enjoy Meltzer to a point. Some of the things, I like to know some stuff that's going on, but I can see why, someone like yourself in the business would call him a dweeb. Let's go to our first voicemail.
Hi, Jerry. Hey, Glenn. Jerry, question for you is, with all your years of running Memphis and talent development and everything, have you ever decided or thought about going into development with WWE, either in NXT or with the WWE Raw or SmackDown? Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Well, that's a good question. And I can't remember how long ago it was, but I have been approached, and I think it was just sort of a feeling out process about doing that, like getting involved. And I've always said, man, I've never offered any, oh gosh, I don't know. I've never offered any advice or ever offered any ideas or anybody or anything like that to anybody other than I guess when Michael Cole and I were doing we're doing our little thing there before WrestleMania. They would come to me and I would give them some ideas on what I thought he and I should do. But as far as any of the other things involved with creative, I've tried to stay away from that because I've just heard what to me would be horror stories about what happens to you when you get involved with and working in creative. And by horror stories, it's not, I just mean that to me personally, because what happens is when you're on that end, you really have to be totally dedicated 100% to that. And I've just heard stories, and it's understandable that Vince expects you to be, ready to go at a moment's notice, 24 hours a day. You got to be on call. And I've Dusty Rhodes was one of the guys that told me one time, King, Vince may call at midnight or something and keep you on the phone for 2 hours or something, and just that sort of thing. And I was always, I always loved to go to the show, do whatever it is I got to do, and then go home or go when you go, you're on your own time, you got your freedom and that sort of thing. And I just know that when you're involved in that, especially in the WWE, man, you are expected to be totally dedicated. And I just have never. I knew I would never be able to have that kind of dedication to it. I don't know why, other than I guess I'm just a little bit selfish with my time. I just like to have my time to do what I want to do, as opposed to being under the gun to do what somebody else wants me to do all of the time. And so I don't know. And the other thing is this. That part of this business was not something that I enjoyed. I always enjoyed the performing and not the behind the scenes stuff. I did it for 20 years when Jarrett and I were partners in Memphis. I did along with Jerry, did the booking, did the all the office stuff, the payroll, the planning, hiring and firing and all that stuff. But I did that part of the business I never enjoyed. I mean, Jarrett, on the other hand, I mean, when Memphis TV was over on a Saturday at noon or 12:30, he would start right then planning and working on writing the next week's TV, which was, our most important thing of the week, our 90-minute long live television show in Memphis every week. It's what was the lifeblood of the company. It's what drew money around the entire territory. That one show was shown the following week in like 10 other cities. And so like Jerry spent all week tweaking and planning and writing the show when he was booking it. And then when it came my turn to book it, I was notorious. I would be in either Tupelo wrestling on Friday night or either Blytheville, Arkansas wrestling on Friday night. And then I would start when I got in the car after the show was over. I'd have somebody driving me, and I would start then, and I would write the Memphis TV for the next morning that showed it. That came on at 11 o'clock. I would write it on the way back to the hotel from whatever town I was in. Just simply because I'm just always been not only a procrastinator, but just kind of a last minute guy, and I didn't like to spend all that time that went into planning that stuff on the business. So I wouldn't be good. I wouldn't be good at trying to help train somebody. I never got into that. A lot of people, I helped train along with Jerry, helped train Jarrett a little bit, and helped work out with Tommy Rich a little bit when those two guys were both getting started. But other than that, I've never really trained anybody. Didn't even train my own son, Brian Christopher. That's just something that never really appealed to me at all in this part of the business. So no, I wouldn't. I've never wanted to or thought about really that much getting involved with creative at WWE.
What I think he mentions NXT, like going down to NXT and offering advice to some of the people who are, at the Performance Center. Would you do that or no?
No, I would not enjoy doing that at all. I mean, what when you talk about advice, it's so funny.
You're the king, though, Jerry. You have so much knowledge. You could spread over all the people who are trying to get in the business, Jerry.
Like what kind of knowledge? I mean, all I can. It's not knowledge. It's experience.
How to throw a punch correctly would be one you could bestow on some people. That would be nice.
Well, because honestly, I've thought about that before. I wouldn't know how to tell somebody or show somebody how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
It's almost like Vince McMahon told me one time. He said, "King, you're just a natural. You're able to do. I've never seen anybody like you that could do every facet of this business well." And he said, "But you're like the most talented guy, one of the most talented guys I've ever met in this business." And I'm flattered by a statement like that, but at the same time, I don't know how I do it. I've just always done stuff, and somehow, luckily, it turned out good. I don't know. I never learned how to throw a punch. I just threw a punch, and I don't know if I could tell anybody else how I do it, and or anything that I do in the ring. It's just I don't know. I don't feel like I know enough about stuff to try to impart that what I do to somebody else. I really don't. I've never felt that way. I've just gone out and done things, and fortunately they've usually turned out okay.
Yeah. So another question from Steve Rogers in New York City. He mentions the movie Ready to Rumble, which is a WCW movie. It has a lot of the WCW guys. This was back, I believe, in the year 2000. It starred David Arquette and Oliver Platt, who plays Jimmy King. And he wants to know, Steve Rogers wants to know, was Jimmy King, the main character in Ready to Rumble, a parody of Jerry the King Lawler? Has anybody told you that at all, or do you know firsthand if that's the case?
I do not know firsthand if that's the case or not. I've had a lot of people ask me that, and I really don't know the answer to that. I felt at the time that, I personally felt that it was, maybe a takeoff, because I don't think they did it as a, he was the main character. He was the lead guy and everything. So it wasn't something that they would be doing to try to, be disparaging towards me about. And also at the time of the movie, I wasn't like considered a main top guy with WWE that they would say, oh, let's do this and have it be a takeoff on Hulk Hogan, or have it be a takeoff on Stone Cold or anybody like that. So I don't know. And I had forgotten this. I actually got to interview on the phone one time. I don't even know how this came about, but I had a phone interview with David Arquette.
Okay.
On some show or something. The WWE lined up this interview with David Arquette. And we did, I think, discuss that a little bit. And I don't even remember. I don't think that it was supposed to be aimed at me or anything that way. At least David Arquette didn't remember it that way.
Well, that's good. That's good. I always wondered that, but myself. But then I thought, why? Why would they pick you?
Well,
why would they pick
exactly.
Pick you. Another question. Let's go to the back to the voicemail, back to the hotline, so to speak, and let's go to number 6. Let's go to this this voicemail.
Hi, Jerry and Glenn. This is Randall from Lowell. I was just wondering, when your match against Kerry Von Erich, the referee stopped it due to Kerry's blood loss. Was that legit, or was that a work? Thank you, guys. Keep up the great work. Have a good one.
There's a question, Jerry.
There's my question. Let's see. Well, Kerry's blood loss was definitely legit, without a doubt.
Okay.
He was bleeding from his arm, he was bleeding from his head, and when I go back and watch that match, sometimes I remember him having the claw on me, and I'm laying down flat on my back, and he is over, like right over my face with that claw on my forehead, and he's squeezing as hard as he can. And the more he squeezes, the more the blood is just pouring out of his head. I remember like it was yesterday. His blood was just pouring down all over my face, in my mouth, in my nose, everything. And it was crazy. This was the time. Like now, if somebody starts bleeding a little bit, the referee has to go put on rubber gloves and stop the match and all that sort of thing. But that, back in the day, you didn't even think anything about it. But there was a lot of blood loss, and I think that was just it may have been Kerry's call on at that time, he and the referee about that. I was I was definitely going over in the match, but that was just a great controversial ending, because he had his finishing hold on me, which I could have tapped out at any second, but the referee had checked Kerry and had been concerned all throughout the match, because he was bleeding from the very first opening bell, and so it was just one of those points where I thought, and everybody seemed to think that, man, this makes a lot of sense, and it'll leave this kind of thing up in the air, where it was almost like the Conor McGregor thing. Hey, he's got a good gripe, and with the referee stopping it, when he had when he still had a chance to win. It saved face for Kerry. It got me the victory, and I thought it was good.
All right, 2 more questions for this episode. Like I said, we're keeping all these questions, and once don't get answered, all the voicemails will be kept. So in the next episode, if we ask the King anything, we'll play them. So don't worry, I have them all saved. But here's another voicemail question for you, King.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dinner with the King. Enjoy the show each week. My name is Thomas Annetta. I'm one of his biggest fans. I have a question for Jerry Lawler. Does he think that Jerry Jarrett would ever maybe get into the Hall of Fame? He has put a lot into wrestling, too. I'm a big fan of Jerry Lawler. Been for years. And does him and Jerry Jarrett still stay in contact? Like I said, enjoy the show. Enjoy any show that Jerry Lawler's in. So thanks for the entertainment for all these years, and y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Thomas. Yeah, Jerry Jarrett and I do. It's not like we're best buddies because he lives up in, I think, Franklin, Tennessee now, outside of Nashville, and I'm down here in Memphis. So we're over 200 miles apart. So we don't go to dinner on a regular basis or anything like that. But yeah, we kind of stay in contact and talk, or mostly text or tweet or that kind of stuff. Social media contact more so than anything. But as far as Jerry getting into the WWE Hall of Fame, I would doubt it. It's there's some of the criteria. Of course, you need to have wrestled for WWE or have some kind of, I think some kind of input to the WWE that would be visible for the fans. And of course, with that part of it, Jerry didn't really do anything. He did, he did work there for a while, and he did help book there for a while, but not, I don't think long enough to consider himself in the running for the WWE Hall of Fame. And I do, I know that the WWE now is reaching out and acknowledging some people that did not ever, perform in the WWE. But I don't think that Jerry, those guys would have probably been wrestlers, and I don't think that Jerry's wrestling career here in Memphis, even though it was big in Memphis, would have been nationally known enough to make it into the WWE Hall of Fame. He's definitely going to be in the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. He'll probably be one of the next inductees in this next year's the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame ceremonies that we had at my club down on Beale Street this past spring.
You speaking of your club, you had a lot of WWE stars at your club at your Raw on Monday, right?
Well, we had some Mickey James came in, and some of the camera guys. Rico came in, and then Alicia Fox was in there. Yeah. Some of the people came in, but it was one of those situations where the show was over kind of late. The dark match went kind of late, and then the next day was in Little Rock for a lot of the people. So a lot of the guys kind of had to take off and get on the road right away. So we didn't get as many in as we had hoped to. And the other thing, our air conditioning was a little on the fritz, so it was kind of warm in the club. But we had a great turnout after all. A lot of fans came in, and did you see Vince Carter was at Raw sitting there on the row? Vince Carter was there, and and who else? I think Michael Cole came in the day before too, and so did a lot of the cruiserweight guys came in. Daivari was in there, and then Titus O'Neil came in. So yeah, we had quite a few WWE superstars to drop by the club.
All right, last question from Porter the Destroyer on Twitter. He wants to know, if you could be any Batman villain in a movie, who would you be?
I wonder if he's talking about if I was going to play one of the already established villains, or could I be like a new villain that I could create?
Maybe whatever tickles your fancy, King.
Okay. Well, they had, he of course had what was it, King Tut? Wasn't there a King Tut on the old Batman TV show? I don't think that King Tut ever made it into any of the Batman movies. So you'd have to go back to which was of course my favorite anyway, the old TV show, to see King Tut. And I wasn't enamored with the guy that played him. He was kind of a fat guy that I didn't really like the character at the time.
Was it William McElroy?
You got me. You're the one looking it up on your phone there. Who is it?
Or his name was Victor, I believe, portrayed by Victor.
Bruno. Oh, Victor. Gosh.
Buono.
Victor Bono.
Bono, yeah, there he is.
Bueno or something like that. I don't know. But it was King Tut, right?
Yeah, King Tut. Yep.
Yeah.
The master of thieves, the ruler of darkness, defender of Egypt.
Yes.
So that would be you. You would play King Tut.
Yeah, I would play him, but I would do it better than he did.
That'd be great. That'd be good.
Yeah, Victor Bueno. Yeah, Buono or whatever. Victor Charles Buono was an American actor and comic. Oh, and briefly a recording artist. He sounds like he's got my resume there. Oh my gosh! Speaking of kings, listen to this. I was taking Peyton to school this morning. Taking Peyton to school, and I'm listening to Sirius Radio, and of course now they have the Beatles channel.
Okay.
And I almost keep it entirely on the Beatles channel. So this morning, as Peyton and I, and of course Peyton's 9 years old, and he is in the 4th grade, and we're riding along listening to Beatles songs. And I've made this 9-year-old a Beatles fan, right? Well, this particular morning, they were doing a show on, the Beatles at the height of their popularity. They cut loose from Capitol Records and formed their own recording company, their own record company called Apple. And so then they signed, they did all their songs came out on Apple Records. And then they also signed some other artists like Billy Preston and different artists that to record on their label. And so this morning, what they were doing were they were playing a lot of songs by different artists that had released records on the Apple label. And so it was crazy as we're listening. This guy starts explaining about this group. What was their name? Brute Force. I even took a picture of it. I even took a screenshot of it, of what was up on the radio. And you need to search this up. This group called Brute Force put out a record, I think, in 1968 on the Apple label, and it was called The King of Fuh, F-U-H.
Okay.
And so it's about, and it talks to, then the song goes along, and it was this, there was this, the land of Fuh, right? And then there was the king of the land of Fuh, and then at the end they started saying, "All hail Fuh King," and it just went on, and all of a sudden I look over and I'm blushing, right? And Peyton's looking at me, and he's saying, "Are they saying all hail Fuh King?" And I said, "Yeah, he's the king of Fuh." And so that was this. I think this song was written by John Lennon, and it was just crazy that something like this got released. So if you get a minute, you ought to look up the song by Brute Force called "The King of Fuh," F-U-H.
It'd be a cool T-shirt for you, King.
How did we get off on that subject?
I told
Peyton as he was getting out of the car, I said, "Don't tell anybody that you heard this song today at school. Don't tell anybody about this song."
It'd be a cool T-shirt for you, King. It says Jerry fucking Lawler, but spelled the way you said for the song. It would be spelled Jerry, but it really is supposed to be saying Jerry, effing Lawler.
You can't put a shirt out like that.
Oh, it'd be great. That would be a hotcake. Sound like hotcakes. I would wear it. People would be like, "Oh, Jerry effing Lawler." Be great. Kind of like Seth freaking Rollins.
Yeah, freaking. That's different. I don't think you can. I think we could make that fly.
One question. Here we go. Jason Borman wants to know really quick: how many crowns have you owned throughout the years?
Oh, that's a good question because I just got asked yesterday about Bobby Shane crown, the original crown that I got from Bobby Shane, if I still had it. And I think, as a matter of fact, it was somebody from Ben up in Talent Relations of WWE. I don't know if they're doing some sort of story. He sent me a text message and said, "Do you still have the original crown that you got from Bobby Shane?" And Ben, I think it's Ben Brown anyway. He said, "I've always had this fascination with Bobby Shane," and I told him, I said I had that crown for almost a year until sort of like the Cody Rhodes thing. Somebody just out of the blue stomped that crown flatter than a flitter in a match. I think the guy's name was Black Bart in Owensboro, Kentucky. And it always amazes me that some of these guys just think that the crown is like a prop that you can just destroy at any given time, and that's what happened to that original crown. And that has happened to a lot of my crowns over the years. Like when Cody kicked that one the other night, I mean, that could have just, crushed it to where they're really very fragile. And so it doesn't take much to just kind of destroy them. So I've lost a lot of crowns over the years. I can't imagine how many I have right now. Probably about 30 crowns. 30 crowns. And the lady that used to make the crowns all these years, I mean, from all the way back to the Bobby Shane crown until just this past year, retired. Oh. And is given up, is out of the crown making business. So I don't know where there's Mark James's brother makes a decent crown here in Memphis, but other than, I mean, I don't know where to get crowns anymore.
Fragile. Must be Italian.
Fragile. They're Italian crowns.
So there was a wrestler named Black Bart, just like the character in A Christmas Story. Black Bart.
Yeah, there was a wrestler named Black Bart.
Did you come to the ring with your Red Rider?
No, this was even before Christmas Story. This
wow.
was the 70s. Oh, okay. Christmas Story, I think, came out in 82 or something like that.
All right. There is your episode of Ask the King Anything. ...
Did you just say Ask the King?
Ask the King anything. A lot of questions still left unanswered, and we will save those for another episode. So don't worry. I know a lot of people complain that we don't answer every single question. Jerry doesn't have time to sit here for 24 hours and answer every single question. So we're going to let Jerry go. Jerry,
I'd be big as you if I sit here in this restaurant and eat for 24 hours. Come on, Glenn. All right, honestly, what do you weigh? Tell the truth.
I'm like 290.
Woo.
Is that bad?
290?
I'm like almost 6'3", though.
I don't know. Ask your cardiologist if that's bad or not.
I haven't gone in a long time. I better.
I know.
Speaking of cardio and weight and cholesterol and your heart, in 2 weeks, I'm not sure if you know this, Jerry, but 5 years ago, you had a cardiac arrest live on Raw. Do you remember that?
What was the date of that? It was September, 11th or 12th?
September 10th, I believe.
10th.
The 10th of September, 2012. And it's going to be 5 years, and we have a very special show. And I know, Jerry, you've done a lot of interviews. You talked about this over and over again. You don't even remember the cardiac arrest itself. But we're going to have the man who is the hero in this story, the man that saved your life, along with the many nurses and doctors in Montreal that also, helped out. But, he was a pinpoint man when it came to, keeping your life and saving your life. Dr. Michael Sampson is going to be on the show in 2 weeks. So both Jerry and Dr. Sampson both on the show at the same time. And he'll give his side of that whole evening and what transpired. And, he calls you every anniversary. The last 5 years,
he does.
He's called you every day. And,
there's probably just a handful of people around who say that there is someone out there, one person who is responsible for them still being alive today, for one person that actually saved their life. And I can say that about Dr. Sampson. I really feel that, if he had not been right there at ringside when I had the cardiac arrest, and if he had not kept my blood flowing through my body with the CPR that he did while my heart didn't beat for like 22 minutes, no doubt I would not be here today. So yeah, and it's amazing that it's going to be 5 years since that cardiac arrest. This in a couple of weeks, and it's so funny because just this past week when I was doing these autograph signings up there at the Northeast Wrestling shows, at least 100 people had to when they walked up to me, it was like they were shocked that I was up and around. People say, "How's your health, Jerry? It's so good to see you up and around." I go, "That's been 5 years. Come on, I'm fine, But it's like people are still. I guess that time has gone by so quickly, or they just remember that so vividly that they feel like I should still be suffering the effects of that. Thanks to Doc Sampson, and he pulled me through it. Okay, and I've not had 1 minute's problem since.
Yeah, so Dr. Sampson's going to take time out of his busy schedule. He's not with WWE anymore, but he's doing his own thing in New York City, and he's taking time out to join the show in 2 weeks. And we'll have that very special episode on the same week of the 5-year anniversary of your cardiac arrest, Jerry. So
yes,
it's going to be interesting to hear his side of the story, and because I don't think he's really had any in-depth interviews about it, or you two haven't had the same, on the same program or TV show or radio.
We have not. We have not. It's going to be fun to talk with him again and connect, and I'll get to maybe hear some details that I really never. It's a funny thing. I don't talk about that much. I don't think about that much. I saw something on Twitter the other day, a picture of that somebody put up, or I think it was Twitter, or whatever. But anyway, a picture online somewhere that they put up of me laying there on the gurney, and I had the oxygen mask on my face, and I'm just like, I showed it to Lauren. I said, "Look, that's what I'm going to look like in the casket when I'm dead." And she said, "Stop, quit that," But I mean, it did. It just looked like me laying there dead. And when you see yourself, when not many people have actually got to see themselves in that situation, and so it was kind of weird.
Yeah,
I don't know what I got some questions that I want to ask him about it. So I'm looking forward to that episode in a couple weeks.
Yeah, there was no white light though. No.
No, I didn't see any white light, and that's the doctor told me later, said that's because you were going in the wrong direction.
Oh no!
Wait.
Dr. Sampson, hurry, please.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a special show in a couple weeks. We have some other shows in plan. The poll, Bret Hart. The feud with Bret Hart won the poll. So next week we'll talk about your feud over the years with Bret Hart and just share some stories. We'll have some audio from your great promos with Stu and Helen making fun of the family and whatnot. So our Bret Hart episode will be next week, and then obviously 2 weeks will be the cardiac arrest. Any I know you want to plug a lot of stuff, Jerry.
Well, speaking of the cardiac arrest, we've talked about this before. I technically died and then was brought back to life.
Yeah, so you're a zombie.
Zombie. And speaking of zombies, this weekend, Friday and Saturday, up in Louisville, Kentucky, they're having a big horror show there in Louisville that I'm going to be a part of, and Brian Christopher is going to be there, and I think Kurt Angle is going to be there. I don't know why they got so many wrestlers appearing at this horror show, but yeah, we're going to all be there doing a meet and greet and signing autographs, taking pictures with people, and along with like every actor that's ever played Jason and Friday the 13th or Michael Myers or all of these people from the great horror movies. I think the guy that was the Leatherface, from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all these stuff. Yeah. All of these guys are going to be on hand appearing, and that's in Louisville, Kentucky this weekend. I'm going to be doing that. And then following week, I got a double shot the following week on September 9th. I'm going to be wrestling up in Dyersburg, Tennessee with Matt Riviera up in Dyersburg on an early match. And then I'm going to shoot over to just not that far over to Jackson, Tennessee at the Oman Arena. I'm going to be wrestling Carlito. You remember Carlito?
Oh, yeah. I spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool.
I think he spit an apple in my face once, so we're gonna finally we're gonna go back to that and revisit that. And I'm wrestling Carlito there. Bill Superstar Dundee's going to be there. Dangerous Doug Gilbert. A bunch of big card at the Oman Arena in Jackson on September 9th.
That's great. That's going to be and also next month, I know you maybe plug this when it gets closer, but you're going to be tagging with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Brian Christopher to take on Terry Funk and the Rock and Roll Express.
What about that?
That's going to be
crazy.
I think it's a double shot. You're going to be on the road around North Carolina, South Carolina area.
Yeah, that's the 22nd and 23rd of this month.
Yeah. So
of September.
Yeah,
September. Yeah.
But that's going to be great. That's going to be classic right there.
I got all sorts of stuff coming up. On the 17th, we got the Memphis Comic Con I'm going to be at, and then on the 16th of September, there I got the match over in Arkansas for the NWA World Championship. I hope I have better luck than I did again for the Ring of Honor Championship.
There you go. Well, hopefully you add you can add that title. Would that be an add to your title reigns? I mean, that would be. It's not a new title because you won it before, correct?
Yeah, no, but it would add to the title reign. Sure, I mean that's just like somebody that's 16-time.
Right.
That they talk about, that's the same title they won 16 times.
Right, definitely. So that would be 169?
169. That's in Hot Springs, Arkansas on the 16th of September.
There you go. Well, you're a busy man, Jerry, busy man. So you can follow Jerry on Twitter at Jerry Lawler. You can tweet at him anytime. He retweets everything, so you guys can do that. You can tweet at the show at Dinner with King. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, all the podcast platforms. Any final words, Jerry?
Oh, also upcoming matches over in, listen to this that's being put together right now. One of my most famous matches ever, we're going to be talking a lot about this coming up. One of my most famous matches ever in Memphis at the Coliseum was when I was wrestling the Universal Heartthrob, Austin Idol. Put a cage up around the ring, and if I lost the match, I was going to get my head shaved. And if Austin Idol lost the match, he was going to dig deep into his pocket and refund the money of everybody that bought a ticket to that show, which we had right at 10,000 people there. Paul Dangerously at the time was managing Austin Idol. Of course, he had to be on the outside of the cage. It was nobody in the cage but me and Idol. And then the match was going on, a battle like you've never seen before. And all of a sudden, up from underneath the ring, he had been under there for hours, comes Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then the two of them do a number for me. I wound up getting my hair all cut off, head shaved. And then that went down in history as one of the most famous matches ever in Memphis. I'm going to be, I think we're going to relive that match in Arkansas, Jonesboro, Arkansas, the Earl Bell Coliseum over there on October the 21st. It's just been confirmed. I'm there. Austin Idol's there. Tommy Rich is there.
Oh, that's going
to that's going to take place. And then, of all things, the way I know that it's been finalized is I get a call from none other than Austin Idol himself.
Ooh, okay.
And apparently Austin Idol has a podcast.
He does.
And he wants me to be a guest on his podcast.
Ooh, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you think that promo with the shoot promo as you call it with John Cena and Roman Reigns was something. You wait till you hear, and then so here's what I told him. I said, "All right, Idol, I'll call in and be on your podcast, but then you got to call in and be on my podcast."
Oh, so we're doing Austin Idol on Dinner with the King?
Austin Idol is going to be on Dinner with the King.
Would you ever thought here in your 40-plus year career that you'll be on dueling podcasts doing promos?
No, I would have never thought that.
All right, Jerry. Well, my final thought is I noticed
who's going to pick up the check. That's your final thought.
That's all you. That's always you. And I had
always me.
I got these waffle fries all over my fingers. My keyboard's all sticky. But my final thought is there were a lot of Burger King ads during Raw on Monday. Was that a coincidence, or was that?
Well, Burger King's one of the new big sponsors on Monday Night Raw, so that's a good thing.
Well, it was fitting with you on there, right?
What do you mean by that?
The Burger King. Oh God, that video of the fan putting the crown on your head and you yelling security.
Oh yeah, that was classic. But then later on, that was one of the best endorsements I ever got. They paid me $5,000, $5,000 to put that Burger King mask on and wear it into the ring one night on Raw.
Wow, that's great. Look at that.
Yeah, it was awesome. This is no lie. Last night, I told Lauren, I said, you know what? Ever since watching Sheamus, and so these commercials work. I said, after I watched Sheamus and Cesaro eat those Whoppers on Burger King, I've been craving a Whopper. So last night at like 9:30, Peyton was almost his bedtime, and so we gathered the three of us up and we went over on Summer Avenue, and I got a double Whopper with cheese, but I did not get the crown to go along with it. But yeah, so I like Burger King.
Did you like when, did you get upset when they chanted Burger King at you, or was that fun for you?
No, that was fun. That was cool. And then who started that up there was, of course, Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that some more too. But yeah, Bret started the Burger King chants on me in the WWE.
I have some great promos of Doink the Clown ordering some Burger King during the King's Court. Some great stuff. So we'll play that next week when we do our Bret Hart
we need to get Burger King as a sponsor here on the podcast.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we get Burger King, get some free Whoppers sent our. Well, no,
you're always bugging me about getting sponsors and
I just want to plug
plugging the podcast every time I'm on thing. That's your job, Glenn.
I know. Well, I'm trying. I'm not on Raw though. I'm not on a TV show.
I know I am. So you go out and sell me.
All right, I'll do that. We got to get some plans going. All right. Well, you pay the check, King, since you're the man with making $75,000 purchases for a piece of art.
I got to get home because the Indians are coming on soon. Got a doubleheader today.
So we'll talk to you guys next week for our Bret Hart episode, and then like I said, Dinner with the King on Twitter, Facebook, all the platforms, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.